Donald Trump just had a press conference at Mar-a-Lago to talk about the 2024 presidential election and whatnot. And I think the best way to describe what we all just witnessed is a mental breakdown taking place on live television. This guy is panicking. He has no idea how to respond to Kamala Harris's surging campaign and his failing campaign. He has to play some defense and he doesn't know how, resulting in chaotic press conferences like the one we all just watched. So I have some clips from this press conference to show you. They're all very crazy. The first one I want to show you, though, is Donald Trump with a straight face trying to claim that his January 6th speech, which an insurrection followed, was bigger in terms of attendance than MLK Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech and the March on Washington. He really claimed this. Just take a look.
And I said peacefully and patriotically, which nobody wants to say, but I said peacefully and patriotically. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken to, and you've seen, Maggie, I was at the mall, I was at the Washington Monument, I was at the whole thing. I had crowds, I don't know who's ever had a bigger crowd than I have, but I had it many times. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken before was that day, and I'll tell you, it's very hard to find a picture of that crowd. You see the picture of a small number of people relatively going to the Capitol, but you never see the picture of the crowd. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken, I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people, if not, we had more. And they said he had 1 million people, but I had 25,000 people. But when you look at the exact same picture, and everything's the same because it was the fountains, the whole thing, all the way back to from Lincoln to Washington, and you look at it, and you look at the picture of his crowd, my crowd, we actually had more people. They said I had 25,000, and he had 1 million people.
Yeah, I just think the big takeaway here is that Donald Trump is a very small man internally. He's very small. He's very insecure, very egotistical as well. So when he's seeing Kamala Harris draw in these huge crowds in Michigan and Wisconsin, and he's seeing his poll numbers fall and his fundraising flatline, then he has to compensate. He has to come up with anything to try to make it look like his campaign is alive. And he says, well, you know what? I am having these huge rallies, and my January 6th speech was bigger than the March on Washington. You guys won't report it because you're fake news, all that nonsense, right? He goes on these tirades. But it's, of course, not true. It is, of course, not true. There was obviously more people at the March on Washington than Trump's January 6th speech. I don't feel like I have to say that, but for MAGA, apparently we do. This is the new lie that Donald Trump is coming up with about his crowd sizes, which he continues to lie about over the years. But this is so egregiously wrong that I feel that I actually have to put up a side-by-side comparison so we really get a grasp of how bad it was. So here's a picture of Donald Trump's January 6th ellipse speech. Now, if you've been to Washington, D.C. before, you know that the area that which they're standing in is actually not that large of an area. They're kind of standing on that main road in front of the White House and the Washington Monument, and they stretch all the way back to just before the Washington Monument, maybe midway before it. And that's actually not that large of a space. So this photo, I would argue, is a little bit deceiving in terms of sight, but this rally, and there's also like green space back there that you can see with your eye on kind of the left and a little bit back there on the right. There's some green space that they're not filling up. But from an eyeball test, yeah, there are people at this rally, but it is certainly not bigger than the March on Washington. Here is the March on Washington, MLK Jr. And you can see that on either side of the reflecting pool, it goes all the way back. And here's another aerial view of that. Huge speech, historic speech in American history. There's estimates of around 200,000 to 300,000 people at this speech. Huge speech. So obviously, the March on Washington was bigger than Trump's January 6th speech, but he can't handle that. And he certainly can't handle his campaign falling behind. His campaign not being liked, him not being liked by the American people, and Kamala Harris surging in every single metric. He just can't fathom it. So that's how that was early in the press conference. That's kind of how it started. So it really gives you an idea of how the tone is of this entire press conference. So the next clip I want to show you is Donald Trump continuing his usual attack line against Governor Tim Walz, who is now Kamala Harris's running mate, running with he's so radical left and stuff like that. So take a look.
She's a radical left person at a level that nobody's seen. She picked a radical left man that is, he's got things done that he has positions that are just not, it's not even possible to believe that they exist. He's going for things that nobody's ever even heard of. Heavy into the transgender world, heavy into lots of different worlds.
Yeah, so this is their new talking point about Governor Tim Walz, that he's radical left. He's super, super far left. He doesn't want to work with the Republicans. He's nowhere near the center. He's going to hurt you and your family. That's their new talking point. But of course, this talking point, like everything else with the Republicans, blew up in their face yesterday when we got some brand new reporting from CBS News. Here's the article on your screen. Audio shows Trump praised Walz in 2020 for his handling of the riots after George Floyd's death. In the audio obtained by CBS News, Trump is heard saying, "I know Governor Walz is on the phone and we spoke, and I fully agree with the way he handled it the last couple of days." Trump, in the 58-minute call with the governors, said of Walz, quote, "He's an excellent guy. You've got a big National Guard out there that's ready to come in and fight like hell. I tell you, the best. What they did in Minneapolis was incredible. They went in and dominated, and it happened immediately." So this guy who Donald Trump is now trying to claim is radical left, he's a lunatic, he's all this nonsense, is somebody that he described as a terrific guy, an excellent guy, and someone who managed his state incredibly well in 2020. Does that sound like somebody that Donald Trump really believes is a socialist? Does he do that? No. Obviously, Donald Trump just has to come up with a new attack line. And here's a fun fact about Governor Walz. Between 2015 and 2017, when he was in Congress, the majority of the bills that he co-sponsored were introduced by non-Democrats. So apparently this radical left lunatic is working with Republicans the majority of the time, and he's being praised by the Republican nominee for president for his handling of his state. Yeah, I don't think that guy's a socialist. I think that that's just the only attack line that Republicans have for any Democrat. It could be Joe Manchin. It could be Joe Manchin. It could be the most moderate centrist Democrat out there who's now the VP nominee or the presidential nominee, and they would still call them a radical left socialist. That's all they have. They can't talk on policy. They can't talk on substance, so they have to come up with stuff like this. It is the typical Republican playbook. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Donald Trump is very clearly panicking, and we saw this when a reporter asked him, "Why aren't you campaigning? Like, Kamala Harris is out there having rallies virtually every single day this week in different swing states. So why aren't you out there campaigning, trying to kind of match that?" And he snapped. He snapped at this reporter and kind of went on a tirade. It's all very bad. So take a look.
Okay.
Mr. President, you have not had a public campaign event for nearly a week now. Tomorrow you'll be in Montana, which is not a swing state. Some of your allies have expressed concern that you're not taking this race seriously, particularly at a time where there is enthusiasm on the other side. Why haven't you been campaigning this week?
Because I'm leading by a lot, and because I'm letting their convention go through. And I am campaigning a lot. I'm doing tremendous amounts of taping here. We have commercials that are at a level I don't think that anybody's ever done before. Plus, in certain cases, I see many of you in the room where I'm speaking to you on phones, I'm speaking to radio, I'm speaking to television. Television's coming over here. Excuse me, what are we doing right now? She's not doing any news conference. You know why she's not doing it? Because she can't do a news conference. She doesn't know how to do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference. And I'm sorry, we need smart people to lead this country.
Man, does that not just reek of panic? A reporter asks him a very fair question of like, hey, why aren't you campaigning right now? Like, Kamala Harris has gained in every single swing state. Her fundraising is outpacing yours. Her volunteering is outpacing yours. So why aren't you out there in these swing states having rallies and campaigning and talking to people? And his response, what a stupid question. Are you kidding me? This guy cannot take an ounce of criticism, a hard question. He cannot do it. And if he does, if he gets a question that's not just, oh my God, you're so great, like, how did you become so amazing? He snaps and calls them stupid or calls them a name or whatever it might be, like he just did right there. And what a ridiculous excuse that he's waiting till after the convention. He just doesn't have the stamina to do it. That's what it is. Donald Trump just cannot get out there and match the energy, the momentum that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have brought to this race. He cannot do it. And his crowds and his rallies are not as enthusiastic as the Kamala Harris-Tim Walz rallies. He doesn't want to get humiliated. He doesn't have the stamina to do it. So instead, he sits at Mar-a-Lago and has these weird live streams of people who are weird and very strange and films these strange videos and goes on Fox News and things like that. That's not campaigning. That's not talking to voters like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are doing every single day. That's just sitting around and playing golf. That's what it is. Donald Trump's not campaigning. He's sitting around and playing golf. It is so, it just shows you how fragile he is as a man. That when he gets a question like that, he just snaps at this reporter who's just doing her job. She's meant to be asking questions like that. That's what journalists are meant to be doing. And Donald Trump just simply cannot handle that. And it's quite embarrassing to watch. It would be really funny if it wasn't so sad and embarrassing, to be honest. So he just snapped, lost it, freaking out, and you're kind of getting a sense of how bad this press conference was. I'm a proud Kamala Harris supporter. I'm a proud Biden supporter. I hope Donald Trump does a press conference like this every single day. Go ahead, from now until the election, do a press conference like this. Go freak out at reporters like this, lie like this. Do it. That's great. You're giving a gift to the Kamala Harris campaign. Anyway, the final clip I want to show you is, I'm just throwing this in here because, again, of how egregious and offensive and disgusting it is. And it's an argument that Trump is now making central to his campaign for some unknown reason. So once again, he's parroting the lie and repeating the lie that Kamala Harris is not black. I don't know why he keeps doing this, but he is. So take a look.
About that, but to me, it doesn't matter. But to her, from her standpoint, I think it's very disrespectful to both, really. Whether it's Indian or black, I think it's very disrespectful to both. To me, it doesn't matter.
So let me just get this straight. Donald Trump thinks it's offensive that Kamala Harris is biracial, like her father's from Jamaica or her mother's from India, making her biracial, both Indian and black, and he thinks that's offensive. Her identity is offensive to him? Really? Does he also think that the millions of Americans out there who are also biracial are offensive? Does he think that the millions of people around the world who are also biracial are offensive as well? Like, where does the line stop, Donald? Where does the line stop? I don't know why Donald Trump is making this part of his campaign. Look, I never like to give advice to the other side because I want us to win. I want the Kamala Harris campaign to win. But what are they doing? What are they doing over there that they think that this is an effective line? This is not resonating with anybody. This is just pushing people away. It's alienating black voters. It's alienating people of color. It's alienating anybody with common sense. Nobody understands why Donald Trump is attacking her identity except him. He thinks it's effective to say, well, she's biracial. That's bad. What? What? This guy is so off his rocker, and his campaign is crumbling right before our eyes. And I'm not complaining. I'm very much enjoying this. I think you are too. We're all very much loving the fact that his campaign is just falling apart right now. He has no idea what he's doing. He has no idea how to respond to Kamala Harris's surging campaign. So he attacks her ethnicity. He lies about his crowd size. He snaps at reporters. This is a very angry, angry man. And this is somebody who should be very far away from the Oval Office, very far away from the nuclear codes. So that was Donald Trump's press conference, a roller coaster, right? I feel like I aged 10 years by just watching it. I mean, my God. So anyway, I'll leave the video there. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. Make sure to subscribe down below. I really, really appreciate all the support. You guys are amazing. I hope you know that. And of course, drop a like on the video and comment. Let me know what you think about this madness. And as always, I greatly appreciate you, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.